Welcome to The Creative Habit, bringing creativity into everyday life, presented by the West Grey Public Library. Session 3, Make Space. To be creative, you must create a space for yourself where you can be undisturbed, separate from everyday concerns. John Cleese. One of the most important reasons to make space is simply to recognize the importance of having a space, particularly if you have a creative project in mind. But first, you make a space in your everyday life, in your everyday environment, to honor your commitment to creativity, to being creative every day. When you have a special project, you also need a practical space or spaces. A lot of experts advocate having one space specifically for tech, computer, internet access, Wi-Fi, and so on, and to store your devices. There's another space that's used for thinking, for inspiration, for consideration, for incubation. And then there's a very practical space that's involved in the making and creating your creative project. For everyday creative thoughts, often space needs to be no more than an uncluttered, pleasing space for you where you can think, where it's yours, where you can make changes if you wish, that's practical, that offers you a workable surface or a workable space, and makes you want to use it, so it's appealing. Then you also need to set up a space to generate and capture ideas, even if it's in the same space. A lot of people use a whiteboard because it's erasable and reusable, or Blackboard for the same reason. You might consider using a corkboard where you can tack ideas up, doodles and drawings and notions, and then trays in a display area so that when you have something that you want to keep on considering, like a doodle or a thought that you've put into an image or a flow chart or anything else that helps you think through your topic, you've got it at hand and you can look at it. And then you also need a place for storage, and it may not have to be much. It could be a bookshelf for books and reference materials, anything that you want to go back to over and over. Most important things to consider when making your space is define the purpose. Again, we're looking mostly here at the maker and creator space, but define what you want to do with it. If you're going to be making pots, then there's no point in having a drafting table necessarily. If you're going to draw a lot, there's not much point in having an oven. Make sure that you understand what it is you intend to do in your specific creative space. This is what we're talking when you have a project, whether it's writing a novel or creating a better business. Recognize the benefits of having this space and using it. And recognize its importance in containing your efforts. There's nothing worse than being in the middle of a project and missing a key piece or some material or equipment that you really need because it's sort of sprawled out into the rest of your house and you just don't have a clue where to look. Have a place that sends you a message. The message is it's time to be creative, so that you're not trying to do your ironing in the same space as you're doing your novel. Take stock of your house or your living space. What is it that you can use? Do you have a corner that's ill-defined or a place that's always appealed to you by a window? Is there a way to define it using screens or some kind of furniture in place of walls if you have a space that doesn't lend itself to that? And then prioritize the changes that you can make to that space so you can actually get started. For a specific project, once again, we're talking a project that requires creativity, not necessarily an artistic project, but one that requires creative thinking and creative approaches. Your practical or maker space needs to hold your material, your tools, your equipment that you need to create, and then a display space, a space for sketches or descriptions or doodles that describe your thinking back to you and acts as a reminder. Then it's lovely to have a different thinking space, and that's the space that's just inspiration or concentration. And then having your technical or logistics or promotion space, that's the business part of your creative space, and that's where your electronics and so on go, and also your storage and your record keeping. So as you know, every week we do, or every month rather, we do quick and dirty options. Those are the simple things that you can do right away within a day. So tech space quick and dirty option is simply to identify a space for your tech, your computer, your printer, your devices that support your creative efforts and projects. Then the next step of that would be figuring out a way for yourself that you can make it discrete, that is separate from your everyday use of your computers or devices. And then use a whiteboard, divided into two sections, one for any creative project you have in mind, and then another for everyday practices. So that's how you might be using it to how to choose curtains that you really like or that satisfy some criteria in your house. Your jumpstart options this month are figure out what makes you feel creative. For some of us, it's having supplies, specific supplies for a task or a job, or having an approach that you wouldn't use for other projects. Think of how you react to color. How do you respond to the different colors in the rainbow, from deep, dark, plummy purplies through to vibrant, lively reds? Consider your environment in other ways. For example, light and light sources. So do you respond better to natural daylight? Do you prefer incandescent lights, LED lights? What works for you? And then the other is textures. Some of us are extremely sensitive to textures, and having a soft, fuzzy chair is going to create a completely different impression than something that's more stubbly or firmer. Then take one action in service of the creative space that you've defined for yourself. Define it in your house or find it somewhere in your living space. Claim it so that everyone who shares the space with you knows that this is your space and that you intend to use it for a specific purpose. And then clean it, because that really helps us as sort of human animals define our space and own it. For deep dive options this month, physicalize your creative space. So when you go beyond the space or spaces that you need and you've claimed the space, set it up, clean it, and organize the area. That might include bringing in materials or equipment. It might develop a wish list or even a shopping list if you have the means that will help bring all the items together that you need and not require them to be in other parts of the house. And then audit each component that you include in this space for comfort, usefulness, or beauty, or any combination. Then put a spark of joy in your space to create. For many of us, it's important to bring back an element of playfulness because it's something that we tend to lose as adults. So that might include something you find beautiful, simply beautiful to look at or to handle or to listen to. Something that raises your spirits and moves you into a sphere where creativity doesn't seem so far away. Include a box of toys, and I know it seems trivial, but it's not. Using things like snow globes or bubbles or buttons, things that remind you of childhood or move you away from everyday practical thinking may help to jumpstart some of the more creative approaches. Use visual art objects that inspire you, photos or paintings or sculptures, even doodles. And then an item that makes you feel loved or reminds you of a loved one. And that can be something from long ago. It could be something as simple as a postcard. It's just something to help you honor this space and make it a positive space with good positive connections and connotations. And then simply to help your thinking, quite commonly people respond well when they use fidget toys or objects that you can manipulate. So it might be wire, it could be beeswax, it could be something. Decide for yourself whether you respond better to materials, say like clay, which are cold, or materials that are warm, like beeswax. Things that you can fidget around with and tinker with as you think or consider. So next session, we'll be looking at the next step, which is creativity exercises, how you open your mind up, how you dismantle your built-in prejudices and biases against creativity, and your perceptions, question your assumptions, let yourself consider new options to things that you may think have only one right answer. So please join us at the end of August on our Facebook page and YouTube channels for the next installment of The Creative Habit. I'm staff member Kim Culkin. Thanks for joining us.